Hi, greetings everyone. This is Salil Kulkarni, and I will be uh, doing an asynchronized class today on marketing fundamentals. Before I do that, the topic we are going to cover today is distribution channels. Okay, marketing distribution channels, and I would like to share my screen here. Just want to make sure you guys are actually able to see what I am sharing. So just bear with me for a second, and let me make sure this is fitting the screen correctly. Okay. Okay, I hope you guys are all able to see what I am presenting right now. Okay, so what is a distribution channel? Basically, the question is, so typically, as you all know, um, a manufacturer makes a product. Finally, there's an end consumer who consumes this. While a manufacturer makes the product, there is a whole process in which a product transferred from one hand to the other. Sometimes the manufacturer directly sells it to the consumer. For example, Apple Store. Apple makes the products. There is no in between distribution. Typically, online stores, you directly get it from Apple. There also at times the Apple Store, which is also owned by Apple and is not a franchise, directly sends it to the consumer. So there is no retail or wholesale distribution. Then there are times when products go from produce from a farmer goes to a wholesaler, it goes to a distributor. So there are different distribution channels. What do these channels do? Realistically, let me share another screen, which will actually. So what do these channels do? And what do these channels do is basically they take your goods, they try to talk to the customers, they make sure your concerns are shared with the customer. There are a lot of different aspects with a distribution channel is made of. And so today we will talk about that. So let me, okay, I'm hoping you guys are able to see my screen, what I'm sharing here. So if that's good, we'll proceed. So what is a marketing channel? A marketing distribution channel. A market distribution channel is a chain of businesses or intermediaries through which goods or services pass until it reaches the final buyer or the end consumer. Okay. Typically, try to understand the concept here. The concept, what it says here, is there is a manufacturer. Manufacturer, I just gave you an example of Apple. Apple directly sells it to the customer. Then at different places, different scenarios, there's manufacturers, they also sell it to retailer, like a clothing store. Many times these manufacturers are overseas. What do? They sell it to a big wholesaler who comes and then sells it to a retailer, and then it sells to a customer. So these are different channels of different marketing distribution channels. And eventually, once you realize which channel you're using, then you get into the supply chain logistics of of a product. Now, we are not going to go all the way into the verticals and the horizontals of these supply chain management. We are just going to study the basics of what are marketing channels and when are they used, how are they chosen, little things. So just understand the concept. Okay. So when we talk about marketing distribution channels, we just realize there are certain channels like over here are direct and some are indirect. What is a direct channel? For it, the perfect example was Apple iPhones, right? They are made by the manufacturer, which is Apple Inc. The channel is owned by the manufacturer or the supplier. So basically, Apple owns the channel because there is no channel really, right? It sells directly through its website, which is also web based, which is also owned by Apple, or it sells it to its Apple stores. retail stores, which are actually owned by. So there's no separate distributor, there is no separate third-party intermediary. Indirect source, indirect sources of distribution channels are when they have a third-party intermediary. To give you a good example, in food and beverage or in tourism or in hospitality, when you're working in a hotel in a kitchen or even housekeeping, you don't directly call the supplier and say, hey, can I get towels? Hey, can I get shampoos? Can I get, you basically call a distributor who basically comes and drops it off at the hotel. Same this goes in the kitchen. The distributor picks it up. He already has an inventory and then he comes and drops it off. So you don't have just a manufacturer, but you also have a distributor in between. For all you know, there might be another wholesaler somewhere who wholesales these products. So this is called indirect distribution channels. I hope you guys do understand the difference between direct and indirect. Now, in the direct channel, there is no distribution. In the direct channel, there is no intermediary. But in an indirect channel, there is an intermediary. What is the intermediary? In simple terms, the intermediary is a middle man or a middle person or a broker or somebody who is in the middle of the supply chains between the manufacturer and the consumer. So this can be anywhere from a wholesaler, it can be a distributor, it can be a retail store. There are a lot of different intermediaries which are present depending on what they are. So first, when we started, we talked about what is a marketing distribution channel. We talked about what is direct, what is indirect. We talked about intermediary. Now, direct channel. For example, let's just take an example of Apple Inc., which is selling your iPhones to you directly. Again, how directly? It's selling through website or it's selling through an Apple store. Both of these are actually owned by the company or the manufacturer. So let's talk about the direct chain, taking into mind Apple's example. Reasons for direct channel. Why would you go for a direct channel of marketing directly from manufacturer to a consumer? Why would you do that? This can be done typically or the reason is when your customers are very large, right? For example, we're talking about Apple. Apple has a huge customer base. So you don't have to really worry about going into different arenas or different areas or different markets. You really have Apple all over. Customers are pretty large base. Customers love directly dealing with Apple, right? We most of the times when we buy our phones, well, nowadays you have these intermediaries in Apple also, where it is sold to a mobile carrier like Bell or Rogers. But if you're just buying an iPhone, customers love to directly deal with Apple because they know they're going to get the best customer service. It's going to be a hassle-free experience. The sales process, if it's complex, and if the sales process delivers value. So you can imagine buying it directly from the source or buying it directly from Apple or a retail store. It definitely holds a lot of value, right? You would prefer, if you were given a choice, you have to pay the same amount of money. Would you want to buy an Apple iPhone from an Apple store, or would you buy it from a Best Buy or a third party? It's always have much more value to it that will be delivered. When do people go direct? When people go direct, when the margins are not very high to justify having another distribution channel in between. Secondly, when the supply chain is faster. We're talking about Apple. See, it's isn't it easy to just go on the website and order an iPhone? It directly comes to you in 2 days. So the supply chain is faster. You have support and expertise from the company and the staff, so you don't have to worry about a third party to provide his expertise. Apple not only provides sales, but it also provides repair. So they completely own the supply chain. When sometimes it's easier to offer discounts and get somebody directly to you than to go through a intermediary collection. And the last one is it adds value. We just talked about how buying it directly can add value to your buying. And when you go to an indirect channel, when do you actually go to an indirect channel? When the order size is not large, or if you don't have a presence in a particular market. So let's, for in this example of an indirect channel, let's talk about, let's assume we are all food and beverage people, or let's say we are all hospitality people. And now I am a, those, they make those soaps and shampoos, which are used in a hotel room. So let's say I'm a distributor of that. Okay. Why would somebody use me? Because the order size which is needed by one hotel is not large enough that a company can directly send it to you from California, right? But here, what a distributor does is he gets it in bulk. Where I'm a distributor, I get all these shampoos in bulk. I keep them in my warehouse, and then eventually I distribute it to different hotels. So even though I don't have a direct horizontal logistical advantage, I by using a distributor, I can actually give my products to different hotels in a vicinity without having a store in there. Also, if you're trying for new markets, let's say we live in Toronto, but now tomorrow I want to sell these shampoos to somebody, to a hotel up north. Now, it's very difficult for a company to actually keep shipping these small items or shampoos or boxes all over the world. But if you're a distributor, it's easier. You can distribute it here because you already you own your supply chain. You have your trucks, you have your delivery driver. So it's easier for you to actually go and drop it off to a location which is remote, which cannot be done directly by the manufacturer. Their distributors are required when you don't require a large order, when you need small handles that needs to, small packages which needs to be delivered. Where let's say, like I said earlier, I'm a shampoo maker. Okay, I make those little shampoos. Not all the hotels in Toronto would want to use my shampoo, which is peppermint flavor. Somebody would want to have something else. So now I'm making assorted products, right? Now, if I'm having assorted products, it's very difficult and expensive for me to ship manufactured products, shampoos, and then ship them from somewhere in Mexico to one in Toronto, one in Richmond Hill, one in up north, one in Georgian Bay. But because the consumer market in Toronto requires a lot of assortment of packages, a distributor is a must because a distributor can actually go and distribute these in different locations. So that way you have a competitive edge over the logistical functions. And that's where you would want to go for an indirect channel. Plus, having an indirect channel, if I was to directly buy my shampoos from a Mexican company, by the time it is shipped and it comes to me, it takes is going to and clears customs and this and that, it's going to take about a month or two. If I'm buying it from a distributor already holds um, inventory of these items. So for him, it's just a matter of putting it in his truck and delivering in the next 2 days. So it actually adds value where you have a quick delivery or a 2 day delivery, which is much better than buying it directly from the manufacturer. So these are different examples of why would somebody either directly go through a customer to a direct channel, or why would somebody want to go through an indirect channel and have intermediaries in between a distribution channel. I hope you guys are able to understand the difference. For any reason, if there is any challenges on this, we can definitely talk about this in the class. Where when I come to the class next this coming week, I'll give you some time to think about it and ask me questions. We talked about this earlier: manufacturer, direct to customer, direct channel, and then the remaining bottom three are examples of indirect channels of distribution. Take some time to read this. These are the benefits provided by indirect channels to the manufacturer and to the consumer. Some of them are providing marketing coverage. So Basically, when you're using an indirect channel or a distributor or a warehouse, facility, they actually have better marketing coverage of the local area. They are able to directly sell the products to consumers, and I'm not talking about just any consumer, to smaller consumers in remote markets. They have support systems for their customers. They have customer service. It's easier to provide a support system. They actually can manage the sale. The manufacturer does not have to come and sell it to a hotel. The distributor itself has salespeople who can actually manage a sale. Uh, Keeping inventory products in stock. As I said earlier, they don't have to really order it direct from the manufacturer. The manufacturer already has sent them enough stock that they can supply to whoever needs it. So they already have it in stock, which reduces the delivery time. So these are some of the benefits that an indirect channel will offer to a manufacturer. Now, what is it there for a consumer? So if you are a consumer, what are the benefits of buying through going the route of indirect distribution channel? One is, of course, the product is always available because let's say you're buying something from a retail store, which is not owned by the manufacturer. You don't have to worry about it because you always know that the job of the retail store manager to ensure the inventory is always there. Secondly, let's say if it's a retail store, then they have an assortment of products to choose from. It's easier to fill smaller and individual order because you are not dealing directly with the manufacturer, which is a big company. It's easier for you to work on credit. Credit is they loan you the goods and then you pay for it in the next 30 or 45 days, whatever the agreement is. So they can provide you credit, which can be difficult to do if you are directly dealing with a manufacturer. And provide services. Services like customer service, where things go and there's a problem with the product, you can immediately exchange it. There's something needs repair, can be done right away. So you have customer service support, which is there all the time, going through an indirect channel. But if you're dealing directly with the manufacturer, then depending on who the manufacturer and how big the customer base is and how big the manufacturing plant is, sometimes it can be difficult. These things cannot be, the manufacturer does not have a complete control over the supply chain logistics. So hence, sometimes having indirect channels can provide much larger benefits to uh, to both the brand and to the consumer. Now, in this next two slides, we are just going to talk about some trends. Okay, this has nothing to do with a particular channel. These are just some of the trends which the manufacturers are nowadays going through. One of them is direct to consumer. So we just talked about consumer. Apple was a perfect example. A lot of customers are actually switching over to direct to customers, where they are trying to end the role of a distributor. This way, they don't have to pay any commissions or excess fees for having this intermediary in between. How do they do that? They have actually reduced by reducing number of partners, by having an online module where they can actually sell in excess to also having an indirect consumer. A lot of times now with e-commerce growing, nowadays you have a lot of these manufacturers selling directly online to you, especially the branded ones like Gucci, Armani. They have these retail store where they directly ship things to you. And you don't have to go through a supply chain. You don't have to go to an intermediary to get to them. A lot of B2Bs. So B2B is business to business, right? So a lot of business to business people or business to business companies or models are now seeing an approach into omni-channel selling than traditional approach. So let me first explain to you what is a traditional approach and what is an omni-channel approach. So traditional approach of selling is, in the past you did not have different channels. You had one way of selling, and that is, let's say I am a manufacturer of a car. So what do? I only have one way of selling. I'm selling it directly through the through a car dealership. Many times these car dealerships are also owned by the car manufacturing company. You go there and you only have one. You directly deal with the merchant or the manufacturer. But as things have progressed, nowadays there are multiple channels which have come up. When you're talking about multiple channels of distribution, that can be not only a channel owned by the manufacturer, which is, let's say, a dealership corporately owned, but now you also have franchise dealership. They are owned by somebody else, but they sell product. Let's say it's a Honda dealership. It's owned by some third person, but they only sell Honda cars. So now you have two different channels. One is direct, sold in a corporate a channel, and the other one is through a car shop, which is not actually owned by the company, the manufacturer. Nowadays, with Tesla, you also have online selling, right? Tesla has online selling where you can not only sell it through directly going through a car showroom, but you can also buy it online. Very similarly, let's say you're talking about some consumer products. We're talking about clothes. Clothes earlier were only sold in one place. You go to the store and you buy the clothes. But now, look, when you're buying your t-shirts or you're buying different things, you have online channel, you have retail stores. Uh, Sometimes you have exhibitions where you buy. So there are different channels. These are called multi-channel approach. In a multi-channel approach, all these channels are separate. They don't directly talk to each other. So if you're buying it from online, then you have to return it online too. You cannot go to a store. They are completely separate. Omni-channel is you still have multiple channels. You still have two, three channels, but these channels are very internally connected and streamlined. For example, let's talk about an example of an omni-channel. So let's say I buy a vacuum cleaner from a store. I buy it from a store, and now I have moved from Calgary, where I bought it, and now I'm in Ontario, in Toronto. 5 days I use it, and now the thing is not working. So what do? I try to call the store. The store says, "Hey, can you ship it to me?" Now I say, if I ship it, it's going to be expensive. At the same time, I have to go to the store. Even if you're paying for the shipping, I still have to go there. So they direct me to the online website of this particular vacuum cleaner. I go online and there are frequently asked questions. There is a question about how do you return things if it's not working. This thing directly sends me to an online support, online support where they have uh, automated messages. When you ask for something, you automatically get an automated message. So I go to this chat box, and there is this uh, computerized AI generated model on the other end. And I'm talking to this person about, hey, my computer is not working. It comes and asks me, hey, how may I help you? My name is Tara. And I say, oh, Tara, hi, how are you? My vacuum that I bought the other day from Calgary is not working. Order number, blah, blah, blah. She says, okay, that's wonderful. I will have somebody get back to you. And then they directly direct you to a customer number where you now are not only dealing online, but now you're calling somebody. When you call somebody, they talk to you, they say, hey, don't worry about it. We will direct you, or we'll have somebody come to your place and pick this up, and then we will exchange this for you. And what happens? In 2 days, you actually get a packing slip, you stick it on it, and they have already scheduled a delivery for you. So UPS comes to your house, picks it up. So now you have so many different channels you're working with, but they're all streamlined and interconnected. You don't have to worry about, oh, I bought it from here, I'm returning it to here. All these channels are interconnected. You get one wholesome buying experience. So even when you return the vacuum cleaner, you get a brand new one replaced in the next 2 days or 3 days. And now you're already dealt with three different channels of distribution. But if you realize you didn't have to worry about, oh, I bought it here, I'm sending it here. They're all interconnected. So this is typically an omni-selling approach. Most companies are actually going around with this omni-selling approach. Also, the growing new trend, e-commerce. We don't have to really discuss this a lot, but there is a whole lot of e-commerce happening in the last few years as soon as the world has become digitalized, which means anything and everything has now been started selling online. Before it was a physical inventory which was kept in a retail store, but now with the e-commerce rolling up, everything is also offered online. Not only do you have manufacturers being online, but you also have distributors online. For example, same with a vacuum cleaner. You might have a vacuum cleaner ABC company selling directly to you online, but you also have Amazon, Best Buy, all these different companies selling the same vacuum cleaner from their own website online. So now, because e-commerce is growing, it's very important to actually have presence in e-commerce, expanding into the global market, which is also called globalization. You have wholesalers nowadays which are buying products, and exchanging them in different countries, right? So many times you're buying certain things from certain, not just from the same geographic area, but also the whole global market. Nowadays, for example, let's take an example of India. Samsung is huge in India. Is Samsung made in India? No. Apple has just entered the market. Where is Apple located? Apple is in Cupertino, California. It's manufactured in China and Taiwan or assembled there, but eventually it's sold by the Apple in California. But if Apple was to just stay into the in the US or in China, would it really reach such a high market share? No. In order to actually dip into that a full market share, they have to expand globally. Distributors of Apple now are not just in the US and Canada, but you also have new distributors opening up and coming up in countries like India, Philippines, China. So what is happening? All these different countries are expanding globally because because the customer base is not just limited anymore to your local country. Now it's expanding all over. And then, of course, finally, increased transparency. Increased transparency basically is, you're in. Okay, so nowadays there's a big trend of warehousing. Like Amazon has warehouses everywhere where it keeps a minimum par level of items. It also has inventory management systems or set up in all these different warehouses. Now you might have a warehouse, one in Edmonton, one in Calgary, one in Chicago, one in Boston. So they all talk to each other. There's a huge inventory management system. So everybody knows there's a huge transparency between all these warehouses. Everybody knows how much is left in this store. How many, if somebody wants to buy certain thing there and they don't have it there, they can say, oh, no problem. We can always ship it from our Chicago store. So there's an increased transparency and there's a lot of warehousing. And all this is achievable through what? Through an inventory management system. Uh, Again, we are slowly now dipping our hands into the supply chain management. So we don't have to go into depth. You just need to understand the concept of how this works. Anyways, is our distribution channel. What a distribution channel is, the direct, indirect distribution channels, and also what is what are the different ways of or the different ways consumer uh, the different trends of consumer distribution channel. Anyways, what I'm going to share now with you is a video where you can listen to this gentleman. And by listening to this video, you can, again, this is a quick revision of what we just talked about. So let me just give me a minute, guys. All right.
Take some lunch here and help. Here are four in American consumers. Have to check.
Okay, so we just talked about it just gave you a brief idea again of the same thing we talked about and the advantages and the disadvantages of direct and indirect channels. What I would like to do now is let me make sure you guys are able to see my screen. That's my big thing. I'm going to stop sharing. Start again. Okay. Okay, perfect. I'm hoping you guys are able to see this. The next chapter, what we're going to talk about, or the next topic we're going to talk quickly about is designing a marketing channel. So before we design a marketing channel, let's first see uh, 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 what what do these channels mean? Okay, designing an ideal channel structure for a brand is a very strategic marketing activity. Now, what do these channels mean? What is the role played by these different channels? And when I say different channels, again, to recap, we were talking about different ways of distribution, wholesaler, retailer, blah blah blah. So it's very important to understand the role played by these different channels. So what are the different goals of different distribution channel? So as you see here, it talks about it ensures availability of product. One of the biggest goals of having a distribution channel is when the consumer needs the goods, it's available. That's the most important. If you're a manufacturer or you're a consumer and you have to wait for 4 weeks to get your product, you're not going to look for that particular manufacturer. You're going to try to just go to somebody else. So the major goal of uh, is to make sure that your products are available. Secondly, to build a channel network, the providing programs which can be approached. We talk about skills, is developing in that selling, which really example like media book. These channels do they to your consumer in local market and buy a home, but also they also a channel loyal where you know the these and also discount because we are greater for development in level an efficient and effective distribution system in the product service regularly, equitably, and this is distribution channel. And deciding a distribution also want that you know what are your consumers looking for. You know, if your consumer looking for there's no also what is your consumer aiming for? They're looking for assortment. They're looking for different assortment, so small. You cannot, as a manufacturer, it's impossible to do that. That's also you don't figure out or if is that really required? Are there any special needs of product like temperature or the way it has to be stored or the way it has to be warehoused? Are there any special conditions required? As a manufacturer, it's possible for you to completely own the supply chain from start to end. And that's where you have distributors, where let's say it's a perishable product, then you cannot be a manufacturer able to supply it to every single organization that's suppliers who can warehouse it, who can store it. So coming back to where the slideshow go? Coming back to channel design. So as it talks about for channel design, the role of a channel design, distribution role is in the brand achieving its objective. So basically, the goal of a distribution channel is to make sure it's making money for the brand by selling its product. It's important to know what type of channels are required. You need an online channel, you need a retail channel, you need a physical channel where you can actually have a store. What is the intensity of distribution? Now, what is intensity of distribution is how strongly or how intensely are you distributing? Some companies distribute to every channel, any channel and every channel or every consumer which comes their way. So that's why they need all the different channels. The easiest example could be for this would be clothing. Clothing uses typically every channel that they use, right? They typically sell online, they have physical clothes, they have wholesalers, they sell it through um, small retail shops. So depending on that, how strong is the intensity? Then there are let's say there's one who sells it to every channel. Then there is another manufacturer or a product which goes through, which does not go through every single distribution channel out there, but it still goes through a few multi-channel approach. And then there is a third product which only deals through one way, and that is a single channel approach. The level of distribution of a company chooses to select depends on its needs, the intensity of distribution, right? We talked about this. Intense, one is the intense distribution, where distribution through every possible channel partner in the market. The other one is selective, distribution through multiple, but not all channels. For example, luxury goods or high-end goods are generally sold through online, are generally sold through retailers, but they don't use all the retailers. They would not probably go to Walmart. They don't want to associate their product in Walmart. They want to make sure that the product is only in certain um, stores which are perceived luxury or which have a perceived high end model to it. So they're very selective about which distribution channel they are trying to pick. They don't want to go through everyone, but yes, they definitely have a multiple channel approach. And then the third one is exclusive, where distribution through a single channel partner in the market and no other. For example, there are certain wineries in California. They don't produce so much that they can actually afford to go through a distributor, but they produce enough that they cannot just keep it there and drink it themselves. So they have to sell it. Some of these use a very exclusive distribution strategy. There are very exclusive high stores which are used to sell only these particular wines, which are really high end, because you cannot sell them through a typical distribution company because they don't make that many bottles a year to actually afford a distributor. At the same time, they at the same time, it's difficult for them to go, just to deliver one case of wine to 6 different markets. So they go through a very specific distribution channel, which is directly linked with the company, which with the vineyard. Okay, so the next one is how do you want to sell your products? How does the customer want to buy it? So these are some of the questions that need to be answered before you design your distribution strategy. Um, so in how when you're designing your distribution channel, you're first looking at, we talked about this, you're first looking at the intensity of distribution. Before that, we were looking at what is your customer perception. The third thing you look at, what are the environmental factors? So let's talk about that. Environmental factors, economic factors. Economic factor is like today is there is we have the Canada is in the middle of a recession. So right now, when the economy is really doing good, all the products do well. All the manufacturers do well because people have money or disposable income to buy these products. When the economy goes down, even the best of the best products fail because people don't have money to spend. So depending on that scenario, you want to decide which distribution channel you want to go with. Do you want to go through something just a few distributors where only a couple of retail stores actually sell your product, or do you want to go through a massive? It depends on the economic situation, fiscal structure, tax structure, corporate company structure. So typically, when a government comes in and they decide, oh, you know what, I'm going to increase taxes on liquor, and I'm going to increase taxes on cigarettes. So now these manufacturing companies have to take that into consideration before designing a distribution channel, because they need to know how much are they going to sell, how strong is their demand going to be. Legal products, there are different channels of distribution, and they're all okay as far as they're all legitimate, they're legal, and there is no hanky-panky business going on, right? Everything has to be legal. You have to have a GST number. You have to pay taxes for everything. But the fourth one is the nature of goods. We just, like we discussed earlier, let's say if you're talking about perishable goods. So if it's a perishable goods, then the consumer might have a different approach to how he's going to buy it. But if it's something which is non-perishable, something like an iPhone or an iPad or also a earpad, um, people want to make sure that uh, it's not a perishable product. So you don't have to worry about how you're going to store it. You don't have to worry about that. So the distribution channel doesn't matter. It's really a something which is there, and there is no questions. You buy it, you listen to it. So in this situation, let's go back to our example, Apple. Apple doesn't need to spend money on distributors, really, to distribute its product. It's already there. People know the nature of the product. It is not going to be perishable. It is not, it's going to have a huge shelf life, because all these products are, none of them, which we are talking about right now, have a, none of them actually are um, perishable or need a special storing temperatures. So these are some of the factors which you want to keep in mind. Economic situation. We just talked about how an economic situation can help selling a product. Legal factors, again, talking all your activities, no matter how complex, have to be legal. Fiscal year talks about government levy taxes, who's going to pay the tax, how much tax there is, who else is liable under the tax code. So all these things are discussed in the physical structure, and you want to make sure you're aligned with all of these before you choose a distribution channel as a manufacturer. And the last one is product consideration. So it's perishable, non-perishable. Does it have dairy in it? No dairy. Does it need special ways to serve? Does it need special way to store it, to serve it? These are some of the price consideration which you might need to consider. Finally, that's consumer consideration, where you want to look at the market where you are actually choosing a distribution channel. Some markets are much more flexible. They are okay to give you a credit. Excuse me. So then there are other channels which consumer goes because of his buying habits. In some certain channels, there is a much ease on credit, getting a credit. So again, depending on what is the consumer looking for, what is the consumer's ideas on this will be the key difference. Key logistic functions. Now, what is logistic functions? Logistics is everything from when the product moves out from the manufacturer till the consumer gets in his hand. Is basically a supply chain logistics. Again, we're not going to go into the depth of supply chain logistics, because that's a whole different and a big chapter. But what are you looking for in the key logistic functions are, like in a restaurant, you have a purchaser, a delivery, a lunchtime, a break. So very similarly, in the logistical scenarios in a company, can be anywhere from storage to material handling to actually packaging, utilizing. Manufacturing was already done, then there is inventory management, then you transport, and then eventually, once it's already in the hands of the customer, how do you relay the message from them stating everything's under control? So these are some of the logistical keys. Conflicts in different channel. Now you understand in a single, in a direct distribution channel, you're directly dealing with the main company. So there's no question. But when you're dealing with different multiple approaches or multiple channels, for example, I'm working with a company to actually, how do I give an example? Let's see. All right. So delivery companies, delivery companies, when you order skip the dish, many times the food is prepared by the manufacturer, but is delivered to you by the intermediary channel, which is to skip the dishes. Now, many times there are conflicts. You don't get the order on time. You call the company. What does the company do? Because there are two different companies, Skip the Dish and this particular restaurant. What do? They point fingers at each other. Oh, we were there on time, but the food was not ready to be picked up. Or the food has been sitting in the window for so long, and this guy from Skip the Dishes has never come in. We're just waiting for him. So, because both the brands are not belonging to you, or you only own one brand, there could be chances of conflicts between direct and indirect. And the whole idea is how you get through this conflict, how you talk to each other or put things on a table, or how would you, think about how would you go about being safety first. Just different channels of marketing and the different conflicts can be accomplished. The reason they occur could be because of people interfere um, in each other's goals. One process might be slower than the other. So there are a lot of different reasons. Different reasons why there could be conflicts. Some of the major conflicts are loyalty, staying together despite the conflicts, voicing your opinion so that you get the right thing out, neglecting certain things just to keep a blind eye to certain aspects so that you can move forward. Um, Sometimes there's aggression. People are trying to badmouth or even batch each other. So these are some of the common examples. Your idea is to stay away from the internal conflict because the internal conflict is only for internal people. When you join in there as a general manager or a hotel manager, your goal is never going into that market directly. You want to make sure you're comfortable and not in conflict before you can go further. Okay, that is typically the end of our presentation. I really hope if you guys have any questions, and I should be able to answer it. You can send it on the link or here. But with that said, I'm going to stop presenting because this was chapter, physical attributes of killing. Sorry, I lost it. So what we'll do is now we'll actually go back to. Or you know what? If there any situation, we'll talk about this in the class. I'm going to stop presenting right now. Where's my? Please, before you come to the class next week, you look at this presentation. The video, the PowerPoint is already there in your study, in your so read this presentation, and eventually we will talk about this. Here is my computer is frozen.